Hello, BookTube. I'm going to work unscripted, so get ready. This is just going to be a short catch-up. Hey, I'm back. It doesn't feel like a little over 2 weeks, but it has been. I think the last video that I posted was on the 19th of September. So we are getting to, time flies. Anyway, I was away, had a little holiday, which was fantastic. I went up to Northumberland, to Morpeth specifically, which is a little town about 30 miles north of Newcastle upon Tyne. Lovely little place, and we used it as a base because it was a very public transportation holiday. The person who watches television loves trains, trams, buses, and we like to see all that kind of thing. It is the 200th anniversary of the railways in Britain. If you use the date of 1825 and the Stockton and Darlington Railway, it has been 200 years, and so there were a lot of events up in that area. If you can hear the wind, that's Amy. That's Storm Amy. Not all of it, obviously. We always get the leftovers, and I'm very grateful for that, by the way. We get the leftovers of Storm Amy, and she's blowing at our windows hard as she can. And then she's going to move on, I gather. The weatherman told me she'd be gone earlier than this, but there you go. Anyway, we had a great time, but of course I didn't really get to watch much YouTube. I watched a bit. I didn't do any prep for videos or writing. I did a load of reading. I got 5 books read in September, got way ahead of my page count. So October I can kind of go, which is not a bad idea. And then of course when I came home, and you can probably still hear it in my voice, I came down with one amazingly heavy cold, which started in my nose, and it's now moving its way down. And I feel good enough to film today. I haven't felt really tired as such, but just really, all the messy. That's why the box of tissues you can see on the bookcase behind me. And we did do a little book shopping. Not a lot. This isn't really a haul as such, although I suppose the number of books, I could call it that. I only shop for books maybe 2-3 times per year because I don't need a lot of books. And if I went shopping more often, it would get too much. So the holidays, my annual holidays, when we tend to do the most book shopping. So I bought a few books, not necessarily going to show them all to camera. Some of them I think I'm interested in them, but you might be interested in some of these titles. I'm going to show you the ones where there was an unusual reason why I bought them. So I'm going to show you first the secondhand books that we bought from Barter Books in Alnwick. Alnwick, the town is actually spelled A-L-N-W-I-C-K, but pronounced Alnwick. I sometimes believe that the English do that just so they can tell who the tourists really are. And who the residents are that just have a different accent. Anyway, while we were in there, loads of books. It is an immense secondhand shop. It's a paradise for anyone who's looking for rare or collectible books, because they also have, in addition to ordinary secondhand books, a large collection of books that have some value, which they display in cases along the walls, big glass cases showing all their different rare books. And then they've got, out of sight, of course, a store area which contains even more books. So who knows how many books they have they can bring out that aren't already on the shelves for sale. So I did a little bit of picking books for specific reasons. And this one that I'm going to show you first, you'll recognize the title. This is Chinua Achebe's Arrow of God. Now, I've been looking out for this for ages, could have bought it multiple times, chose to buy it here simply because it was published the year I was born. I had a little thing for a while where I almost thought of creating a TBR list based on books published just during the year I was born, or maybe a couple of years after that, just to see what kind of a list I could get together. I still have the list sitting there, but I don't fancy using it. Nevertheless, I am interested in some of the books that came out the year I was born, and this is one of them. So I thought I've been wanting a copy of this for ages. So there we go. Look out. You can bet that I'll be reading that over the next 12 months. And then this next book I bought because Meg at Books Off the Beaten Path was talking about the author Mary Stewart. And I thought, oh, I have a Mary Stewart. Don't I have a Mary Stewart? So I'm rifling around in these messy bookshelves. I didn't own a Mary Stewart. I owned a Mary Selby, which I also haven't read. So got to get to that as well. But, one thing at a time. So I thought, I need a Mary Stewart. What a well-known author. There was loads there at Barter Books, all kinds of different titles. But I suppose the cover art on this one, which is the ivy tree, really caught my eye. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to have Mary Stewart's The Ivy Tree. That's what I'm going to have in my bookshelves, there for me to read whenever it takes my fancy. This next book is a play. I knew the author's name. You'll recognize the author's name. I don't know, though, if anyone has ever reviewed this particular play. The plebeians rehearse their uprising. That's how you can catch me with a title. Good title. I will pull it out because I'll think, well, you know what, I'm going to take a punt on this. Because Günter Grass, we know well. He's a very famous author. But the play, I thought I knew nothing, never heard of the play. So I'm trying to get a collection together of 20th century plays. I don't know plays very well, and they're lovely slim volumes. So I'm thinking maybe I should, maybe even dedicate a month to just reading some plays. I'll think about that, maybe. Now, I think I'm right, am I? That the last video I posted, I talked about a new TBR list, which will start the beginning of 2026, which I'm calling Alphabet Soup. And what I did was I went to my bookshelves and thought, right, do I own at least one book where the author's surname matches one of the letters of the alphabet? Can I create an alphabetical list of 26 books where the author's surname? And I was able to get 22 out of the 26. And for the 4 letters that I didn't happen to have, I went ahead and just picked wildcard books. Now that list is set. I'm not going to change it. However, it sat there in my mind. So as I was browsing at Barter Books, and also in Morpeth, there was a Waterstones. So there we go. I bought some new books as well. And I just couldn't help but be drawn to authors whose surnames were the letters of the alphabet. I think it was X, Y, Q, and U, the letters that I was missing. And so here we go. This I bought at Waterstones in Morpeth. This is Misinterpretation by, and I haven't trained myself on the surname. It's Ledia, and I do not know how Albanians pronounce the consonant block XH. So could it be Koga? Choga? I'm going to look that up. I'm going to learn. So by the time I've read Misinterpretation and come back to you with a review, we'll have the definitive pronunciation. But this is an Albanian writer in translation. They were longlisted for the 2025 Booker. I don't really make a big deal out of the Booker Prizes, but it does interest me, the books that are selected for the long list. Not always the short list and the finalists, although I will read those eventually. Because it gets difficult. There are just so many. But the long-listed ones that never go on to the short list, I always think, I wonder if really they're little gems that it's a pity that almost to get long-listed and then, when you don't make the short list, the attention goes away from you, even though it might still be a really good book. I'm looking forward to reading this one. So, yeah, that's Misinterpretation. Let me just put it up again. Nice lavender cover. See, I don't often worry about colors, but that was attractive too. But it was mainly the surname of the author, because I thought, I own a book where the author's surname begins with X. Yeah, and in a similar vein, I bought this little book, Premonition, by Banana Yoshimoto, because the surname began with a Y, but also because I thought, Banana, okay, we're going with that name. That's cool. I don't know. I'm presuming they've just taken the English word banana, but I sort of thought, maybe I'll learn something about Japanese. Anyway, I will definitely read this book and will let you know. At the time of review, you will get the full lowdown on premonition. And then another work in translation, which the surname doesn't quite begin with Q, but it was as close as I could get. Now, I can pronounce Spanish, but I have never learned correct pronunciation for Portuguese. And this is a Portuguese novel in translation. It was originally published in 1905, but it hasn't been translated into English until 2008. And so this is The City and the Mountains, and I do not know how to pronounce the author's surname. There's a cedille under the C, so in French that would tell me a S sound, but I don't know if it's Essa de Quieros, Essa de Quieros. I will find out. You're getting the before I prep for a review look at some of these books, but I just thought, okay, Portuguese in translation, probably nobody's heard of it. I'll read it. We'll find out what it's all about. And the next book is a scary title. I didn't buy it for the author's surname because I have plenty of books where the surname's author begins with the letter M for mother. The reason I bought this is because I have read American Psycho, which was a tough read, but an amazing book. And so I saw this. This was one of the finalists for the Booker International Prize. African Psycho by Elaine, and I haven't even practiced his name. Mabanku. We need to work on that. This is, I think it's good that you see that I struggle with surnames as well, but before I go on camera with a review, we sort out how is that name pronounced as best we can. I think there was one time when, in spite all my searching online, I wasn't able to 100%. I could get recordings of other people saying the author's name, but I usually like it if I can find a recording of the author saying their own name, or they're in an interview with another person, because even if the interviewer says their name, I presume, I hope correctly, that they've asked the author, how do I say your name? And they've learned it and they've got it right, because I would hate to face the eyes of an author and then mess up their name. That'd be too much for me. And then just in case you thought, no nonfiction, so unusual for me, I did find, and unfortunately the dust jacket was in such poor shape on this book that it actually tore it while I was trying to pack it to come home. But this, I don't know if the title really shows up very well. Oh, there we go. Bring it closer. The White and the Gold by Thomas B. Costain. And this is a volume that was written in 1954. It was one of a series, but each book in the series apparently was written by a different author. And it's covering Canadian history. This particular book, The White and the Gold, is dealing with the very earliest years of the discovery of Eastern Canada and in particular French Canada, up until the war with the English, when the British took over that territory. And there is some more history for anyone who's Quebecois. I'm sure they could tell some of that history better than I can, because that was something that we did not learn a great deal about when I was growing up. Yeah, that's another one of those history gaps. And so I did think, well, before we try to fill the modern history gap of what has it been like for French Canada since the English took over, I thought, well, I only remember smatterings of what I had in high school as Canadian history, which was talking about, the first explorers that came over and the beginnings of the fur trade and the Hudson's Bay Company, etc., Radisson et Groseilliers and all that. But that's as much as I can remember now, and all that, meaning I don't really remember much. So when I saw this little book, and this is obviously a detailed history of that time, so we go from about the mid 17th century to about the mid 18th century, and just focusing on French Canada and what life was like there before the English took over that territory. And I thought, yeah, I need to know more. So I was really excited about this. Very, very glad. It's got, for those of you who are enthusiastic, I can't remember what you even call those page edges, but I thought as I was paging through this book, oh, people really like these. They feel a bit funny to me, but okay. If you like them, that's great. I like this book because it was old, because it was very detailed. There's a lot of maps, a lot of charts. I like that. I like that when it shows that the author's got a hold of information that's really detailed. So I'm looking forward to reading that. And that's it, everybody. That's all the books we bought. So I've come home. I have 9 scripts ready for filming. And if I hadn't come down with a cold, a lot of those would have been filmed already. But as it is, I'm going to film 2, maybe 3 today if I can get away with it this morning. The person who watches television has kindly gone out to have a coffee and buy me some emergency groceries so that I can have this room to myself. But I've promised him that he can have it back at 3 o'clock because the rugby is on, right? We can't miss that rugby. Anyway, everybody, watch out in the next few days because all those scripts, they're just going to come plowing through. I have enough material already written to take me all the way through October. There will be Middlemarch meditations. For those of you that follow them, I'm going to get on to those this week probably, because once I get enough filming done and editing that I don't have to pay attention to that, I can really focus just on the 2 scripts for October's Middlemarch meditations. So that's what you've got to look forward to. Good to be back. Good to be back in the whole YouTube routine. And I'll see you again in a few days' time. Take care. Bye-bye.